Hey guys, hope all is well. I'm doing this presentation from my home office. This presentation is called Love Allows Mistakes, and I was inspired to do this presentation based on a few very popular questions. They are good questions, specifically for someone like myself who is a full preterist. And so I actually received an email today asking these questions, and I decided to read to you my responses in case it might help. So, the first question, and very common, and it's a good question. Where does that leave us now if Jesus has already returned and finished the work? So here's my answer. We are in the kingdom of God right now. We are in one of many ages. I understand that many would think that cannot be correct because sin still occurs. The problem with that position is that Christians also have sinned, often do sin, and often continue to sin. And so therefore they participate in those very same sins. Some more, some less, but all have and often continue to sin. So what should we conclude? I've come to the place that even under the reign of God and his Christ, that not all subjects will be obedient to the King all the time. But we have a gracious and patient King that allows all his people to learn from the knowledge and the experiences of good and evil. God allows his people and all people to make mistakes. The next question. Is the human race just supposed to continue like this forever? And then there's a B and a C to this question, I think. Or do you think there is yet to come some future climactic end where evil and sin are finally done away with and everything is set right? So here's my response to that. And again, very good question, common question. And so here's my response to that. I want to note the like this in your question. So I'm referring to when he said, is the human race just supposed to continue like this? So I want to note that like this. What is like this? Is it because you think that things today are worse than, let's say, 35 years ago? And I'm making this comment simply to move the writer as well as you all to really think about what like this means, right? Think about that. So for example, let's think about the year 1990. The world was different. It wasn't certainly exactly like this. It was different. Some say it was better back then in 1990, and others say it was worse. How can both be true? Well, I think it's perspective that comes into play here. Ages and generations and perspectives change, much like the seasons. Not everyone loves winter, and certainly not everyone loves winter for 3 months, and I would happen to be one of those people. I'm okay with winter for about a month, maybe a month and a half. It starts hitting 2.5, 3, especially if it's a vicious one. I'm not crazy about it, right? Maybe other people love winter. Maybe for them, the colder the better. So the human race will not be like this forever. It's never been like this forever. So I thank God, for example, that we are not like before. Example, like those that would have taken a woman, for example, or a man for that matter, and throw them down on the floor and say, the law of Moses says this person deserves to be stoned. I thank God we are not like that anymore. But the human race at one time was like that. They would stone people for adultery. I can't help but think to myself, sometimes people were stoning someone for adultery and maybe they themselves had committed adultery. Some back then thought that it should stay the same. We should still continue to stone adulterers. Some people thought it should stay that way. But Jesus said otherwise. And now we say otherwise. At least I hope so. So the world didn't stay like that forever. And I wouldn't expect that the world should stay like this forever. I'm glad that some of these changes have happened. Ephesians 3:21 in the Old King James Version says, "It's a world without end." I don't think there will be a climax or climactic end to the world in the physical sense. But rather, I think an age can begin and then end, and a new age can begin and end, then begin and end, etc. And one last thing that I would ask all of you actually to consider. What would you call a king that insisted everyone did everything the exact same way all the time according to that king's rules and laws? And that if you didn't obey those laws every single day and every single time the exact same way, that king would punish you immediately. And all those who didn't do exactly what he said at all times would be in some shape, way, or form punished constantly. I think we would call that king a cruel tyrant. I would suggest that the reason why you still see mistakes, sin, wrongdoings is because the Father and his Son are not cruel tyrants. They allow people to make mistakes. So if the kingdom of God doesn't appear the way we individually think it should, I would ask, is it possible that we don't see that we are in the kingdom of God and we are God's subjects? Is it possible we don't see it because we don't recognize the character of God? That God is love, and love allows mistakes. So I added a bit to the response here, but overall, I wanted to give you that answer and allow you guys to think about what I've responded. You may like the answers. You may not, but they're answers. I hope the message finds you well. And remember, do all things with agape love.